language of exporting can be confusing. There are several different terms that are often used interchangeably, but they have small but important differences. I'm Kari Crane, editor of Shipping Solutions' international trade blog Passages. Many people use the terms exporter and U.S. principal party in interest, or USPPI, interchangeably. But that's not completely accurate. While an exporter may or may not be the USPPI in an export transaction, the USPPI is always an exporter. Let me explain. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any of our Basics of Exporting videos, sharing practical advice for exporters and importers. In 2000, the U.S. Census Bureau updated the foreign trade regulations and replaced the term exporter with the new term USPPI. There are three main reasons the regulations were changed. One, to clarify and specify the documentation and documentation sharing responsibilities of all parties in an export transaction. Two, to identify the data the USPPI is responsible for reporting to the U.S. agent of the foreign principal party in interest, or FPPI, in a routed export transaction. Three, to create conformity. When submitting EEI to the automated export system, the exporter is always designated as the USPPI, which the FTR clearly specifies. Also, the Export Administration regulations define the parties who may be listed as applicant on a Bureau of Industry and Security license. The only difference is that in certain routed export transactions, the EAR will allow the agent of the foreign principal party in interest to be listed as the exporter on the license. So what's the difference between USPPI and exporter? An exporter is defined by AES as the person or organization in the United States who has the authority of a principal party in interest to determine and control sending of items out of the United States. The Census Bureau website defines the USPPI as the person or legal entity in the United States that receives the primary benefit, monetary or otherwise, from the export transaction. The definition goes on to say that the USPPI's general description can include U.S. seller, a wholesaler or distributor of merchandise for export, U.S. manufacturer, if selling the merchandise for export, U.S. order party, the party who directly negotiated between the U.S. seller and foreign buyer and received the order for the export of merchandise, foreign entity, if in the U.S. when items are purchased or obtained for export. The National Customs Brokers and Forwarders Association of America says this: if you are the recipient of the purchase order from the overseas party for cargo that is exported and you are invoicing them for the product, you are the USPPI, no matter what the terms of sale are. If we're thinking in general terms, the term USPPI falls under the umbrella of exporter. You can be an exporter and not be a USPPI. Conversely, being a USPPI indicates that you are a specific type of exporter. You must identify yourself as a USPPI when exporting in the United States in order to file an AES. Only the USPPI, the USPPI's authorized agent, or the authorized agent of the FPPI can file. If you need more help understanding USPPI, check the notes below where I'll link to several articles we've written on the topic. If you liked this video, like it, share it, and subscribe to our channel for more videos sharing real, practical advice for exporters. You'll also find hundreds of articles about every aspect of exporting at shippingsolutions.com/blog. Look for a link below.